Hi, I'm Tracy Soltis, your leading health and nutrition coach and molecular biologist. I've consulted with hundreds of people around the world on their human journey. So if you're a seeker looking for answers, information and knowledge, you'll find it here. Come on a journey with me as I explore the science, the physical body, and the cognitive and energetic space of what it really means to be human. Alrighty, welcome back everybody, and we're taking off into season 3 today. It's a beautiful year, it's 2023, and I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, Edwina Taylor. Hi, Edwina.
Hi, Tracy.
Yay! I'm so glad I turned your mic on this time. Woohoo!
Yay!
We got it right. I'm going to start by introducing you. So Edwina is qualified in counselling, women's health and fertility. She's been working in women's health since 2006. Wow. Edwina has helped thousands of women heal their womb, their mindset, and help them incorporate embodiment practices to integrate changes within the nervous system. Having a balanced nervous system creates safety in the body, which brings about trust and reassurance. This deepens our awareness and enables us to connect with our intuition and our inner guidance to help us make the right choices through life. Yes. Edwina is renowned for her success in helping women to fall pregnant, yay, with her signature fertility programs with a success rate of 60% of women having a baby. Oh my God, I've gotten chills. That is phenomenal. Her programs connect the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of bringing everything together to feel safe to fall pregnant. Edwina's holistic approach and openness for women, whether conceiving naturally or with medical interventions such as IVF, alongside with having her own clinic and working online globally, she's teaching womb and fertility massage courses to practitioners in Perth and Sydney. So if you're listening and you're ready to make a change and you're looking for someone like Edwina, make sure that you catch her online. Her Instagram is at Edwina Taylor Wellbeing, or you can visit her website at www.edwinataylor.com.au. And so today, Edwina is going to jump on the couch with me. Well, she's not going to jump on the couch, but she's sitting on the couch. But who knows? She might jump later. And we're going to be talking about fertility, embodiment, and creating a healthy womb space. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Tracy. What an introduction.
That
Thank
was
you.
an introduction. And I'm
Yes.
so excited to have you here because we've been trying to connect for a little while now, haven't we? And we just haven't quite got there, but I'm so thrilled. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to be the first episode for season 3. This is very exciting. And I've kind of got chills. I don't know if you can see, but I'm actually getting chills. Yeah. So let's start off by, I want you to tell listeners a little bit about yourself, but also how you got on this journey of helping women with their health.
Well, it actually started with my own journey of health, Tracy. Back in 2013, I actually had an accident which stopped me walking for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And over that time, it connected me with the mind and the body, and the physical just simply wasn't working. And I hurt I ended up developing complex regional pain syndrome, which is like a nerve condition that runs from, it was damaged in my right foot and it went all the way up my leg. So I wasn't walking for 4 years.
Wow.
It was a long, long journey, and the physical, there was just nothing was shifting. And doctors told me you'd never walk again, you'd never have a normal job, you'd never run. I was training for the City to Surf at the time, so I was gutted.
Wow.
And that led me into going onto more of a spiritual path, learning more about meditation, the mind-body connection, and from that, healing my own physical symptoms, healing the complex regional pain syndrome, being able to walk, being able to run, have a business, and that's how I got started, was that mind-body connection of connecting the two together and healing the trauma and the belief system and the things that hold us back in life. It shows up physically in the body.
That's incredible. 4 years of having to put your life essentially in a different space. I'm not going to say on hold, because we all go through these different things that happen in life and we have to kind of, adapt and transition to accommodate that. But that's such a significant time for you. Yeah.
It certainly was. It certainly was. And then moving into women's health and fertility, it was actually a girlfriend who said to me that she was struggling to conceive, and after a wine and a pizza one night, I said to her, if there's anything that I can do to help, please let me know. And she took that quite literally. And I'd worked in corporate for my whole life, my whole career, but I also had a side business which was massage, and she found fertility massage and introduced me to that, saying that there's this modality that's helping women. I'm hoping you can help me. So I did some research on it, and from that research I ended up trialing it on her just from what I'd seen on YouTube, and it worked. She fell pregnant. So I found the founder.
So you've got a special touch. You've got a special something about you. Absolutely.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
So I found the founder, and she was in London. So she was flying over to Sydney, and I went and did the course with her, and that's where my journey began. From there, I ended up doing many things, getting into counselling. I'm now doing psychology and working with the mind and the body. And the womb is where we hold all of our trauma. As women, whether you're trying to conceive or you're not trying to conceive, our womb is a place that nobody touches. It's a place where you hold all of your secrets, your trauma, all of your belief system, your inner critic, everything sits in there. And so if it's left just to do whatever it wants to do, and you suppress those feelings and emotions, you'll find that they'll physically manifest into the body.
And I want to talk a bit more about that. So let's dive a little bit deeper into trauma in the womb and what that looks like, because I feel like, things when we can't see them or touch them or acknowledge that they're there, we tend to just forget about that whole massive aspect of us that makes us a woman. That's it brings life into the world. We feel it every single day. We live through cycles. We go through the ebbs and flows of what it means to go through menstrual cycles and all sorts of things. So we're holding so much in our womb. And so from your experience, what are the sort of traumas and things that you see that kind of manifest within the womb?
Some of the things physically that manifest in the womb is infertility, heavy bleeding, premenstrual symptoms, cramping, backache, bowel issues. Like your period blood is like brown, sludgy, black. Things don't flow, clots. All of these things they are all physical symptoms of something's not right in your womb, and something's not right in your life as well. Because as women, our womb is a place of creativity. It's your passion, it's your purpose, it's your pleasure. And if you're blocking that area with things like anger, guilt, shame, embarrassment, any kind of those deep, heavy-seated emotions that as children we were not allowed to express. I see so many women in my clinic that have got so much anger and frustration, but have really suppressed it so far down because it wasn't acceptable. So when you went to your caregivers, your parents, your grandparents, the people that you lived with as a child, and you were angry and you tried to express that anger with a tantrum. So you see 3 and 4-year-olds having a tantrum at the shops, right, Trace?
Yes.
And some people will walk past and go, oh, my God, look at that child. That mother's not, doing whatever she's meant to do. That child just has a need and no one's met it. Right? And when that happens, when the need's not met and that anger is just fueled even more or suppressed more.
And we've all held on to anger. I know that it manifests in different areas of the body. I mean, I feel it probably, if I've ever manifested anger and things, it's usually in my heart space because I'm such a heart-centered person. Naturally, as a woman, yes, it gets held in there as well, and we can talk a little bit about that later. But for me, like all of these things that are manifesting inside us, so all the energetic centers, there's 3 main energetic centers for a woman. There's the womb and the yoni, there is the heart space, and then obviously there is the brain through the pineal gland. So we've got these 3 main energy centers, and most people will manifest certain things that have happened in different traumas in their life in one of these areas, or sometimes more of these areas, just depending on what it is. And for me, it tends to be like in my heart space, that's where I tend to hold stuff. And I've had to work really hard to release a lot of that trauma. That has not been an easy journey. Cracking the heart open and allowing it to, receive love and to give love has been an epic journey for me. And I'm sure that it's the same within the womb spaces, right? So receiving intimacy, giving intimacy, receiving pleasure and allowing things to, I guess, be guided in a way that's open and receptive, because as a feminine we are receptive, but allowing things to be received in all different things, whether that be pleasure or creating babies and receiving, the process of conception. If that area is holding anger, I mean, it's not a healthy place for us to actually have a baby put in there, is it?
Anger. Can you believe that anger is one of the main blockages that stop women and men from being able to move forward and have what they want?
Yeah.
And I love how you brought that heart space in, because if the heart's not open, it can't integrate and embody in the womb. Mm-hmm. And because our womb is where we manifest from. So, if we want to manifest money, if we want to manifest a relationship, if we want to manifest a baby, if we want to manifest a new project, it comes from the womb. But if the heart's not open, how are we going to receive the guidance that we need to be able to integrate it and embody it into the womb, to be able to birth it out of the yoni?
Yeah. And it's such a scary thing for women, because we're so protective of our womb and our yoni, don't you think? Like,
Absolutely.
That's the thing too. I think that when we look at traumas or we look at things that have happened to us and we are holding anger and frustration and sadness in those spaces, it is a big wall to bring down to allow that to happen. And I'm sure you see this a lot within your embodiment work. Yeah?
Absolutely. And it is that safety in a person's body, in a woman's body especially, no matter what we are going through, if we don't feel safe in our body and our nervous system, then it's going to be pretty hard to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So when I work with women, it's about helping them to feel so supported, so that it allows them to unleash some of the blocks that they have around their heart, to be able to embody and get into where all the deep stuff is in the womb.
Yeah.
And when that happens, a woman just completely, I've got goosebumps saying this, a woman just completely opens up to so many possibilities and opportunities. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's that surrender, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a part of them that surrenders, and that comes back to, between the ages of 0 and 7, this is when our conditioning, our child conditioning starts. And whatever happened in that 0 to 7 is where all of our beliefs start to form, and what we think about ourselves, depending on how we were perceived, depending on what we had to be to survive in that 0 to 7 is going to be then how we do life as an adult.
Yeah. And that's really... it's so hard too, isn't it, as a parent? You're a parent, I'm a parent, and I look at Charlotte and I'm like, gosh, I hope I haven't messed her up too bad. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that the 0 to 7 is where kids are really establishing the foundations of what's going to see them through into adulthood, and any traumas that happen now or in that period are going to come out at some point in the future and going to have to be dealt with. And it's such a scary thing as a mum, don't you think?
100%. I've got a nearly 17-year-old and a nearly 12-year-old. They're both, within the next month or two, they both turn those ages. And when it comes to birthing a girl, your little girl, so say, and we've both got a Charlotte, so this makes it fun, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So my Charlotte was an egg in my womb when I was in my mum's womb.
Yeah.
So my Charlotte, she has got not just my trauma, she's got my mum's trauma.
Yeah.
She's got my trauma and she's got her own trauma. And this is what happens, is that I always say to my, the women that I see that are trying to conceive, is that bringing in a girl baby is so much harder, because you have to be in alignment with not only your own stuff, but your grandmother's stuff as well. If there's things that, for instance, I hold my grandmother in me and my mum. Mm-hmm. And so if there are any ancestral patterns or energy there or trauma that's gone on which hasn't been dealt with, it's going to be carried on into that little girl.
Yeah.
So if you don't like yourself as a person, if there are parts of you that you think aren't good enough, if you think that you're not safe coming back to that trauma, if you don't feel safe in your body and you weren't protected as a child, well, then it's going to be really hard in your body to think that you can hold space to keep your own girl safe.
Yeah.
So it's this whole mechanism of it all kind of works hand in hand. And I love how you say that. Like when I had my daughter, I had postnatal depression.
Yeah.
And it was really hard those first few years.
Yeah.
And so but now the thing is that doing the work later, I don't only heal me, I heal 7 generations before me and 7 generations after me.
Yeah.
So I tell my Charlotte, your kids are going to be amazing.
Yes.
Because we're both doing the work, because my Charlotte also does the work as well.
Yes. And she's 17, your Charlotte? Or 12?
In April.
Yeah, amazing. And that's what I hope for my Charlotte too, is that because I do lots of work on myself too. And, a lot of that work came after Charlotte was born. So a lot of that, I have to show and guide and support her as well, and be very aware of any of the things that I can see in her that might have been sitting there that are this ancestral, cyclical stuff that's actually coming through, so that I can guide and support her as well. And it's a big thing. And I think that's part of this process, is making sure that we are looking after ourselves and we are leaning into these things that have happened in, our past and in our parents' past and our grandparents' past, so that we can actually bring and birth children into the world that essentially are able to tackle these things later down the track as well. Yeah. Absolutely.
I know that just from my own experience with working with my traumas and my fears and my worries and anxieties, I'm able to now guide my Charlotte into the woman she wants to be. And she has a completely different childhood to what I had.
Yes.
Because of that reason.
Yes. This is it, isn't it? Yeah. My Charlotte has a completely different childhood as well. And I can see the pros and cons to it already. Do you know what I mean? Like it's definitely not perfect. That's the thing. Like my life was definitely not perfect. And there's a lot of that'll be coming out later. There's a book coming out this year where I've actually shared quite a lot of my experiences and transformations in my own journey. So that's coming out in March this year. But yeah, it's definitely been a process, and my life is significantly different to what my Charlotte's is, the whole experience. And so watching that and, actually trying to step into her space and try and understand what it must be like for her going through this journey, that's also quite interesting as well, because it is so different. But yeah.
And it would have been your conditioning from the way that your nervous system regulated as a child is going to be completely different to your Charlotte and how she regulates, because you've done the work.
Yeah.
And this is what I find with women and fertility, is that, if you're struggling to fall pregnant, you've got to do the work on healing your nervous system to feel safe in your body, to be vulnerable, to tackle some of the stuff that's holding in your heart and womb that's presenting in physical symptoms, such as I was saying, the heavy bleeding, the menstrual cramping, the PMS symptoms, the infertility. It's working through some of those physical symptoms at a deeper level of emotions, because the emotions drive the physical. So until you heal the emotions, those physical symptoms are not going to shift.
And I want to point this out. So I just want to go back to something that you raised there, is do the work. So I talk about that a lot. I know you talk about that a lot. But some people might not actually be aware of what that means. So what is do the work? What does that look like?
I guess this is a great question, and this is going to be something that everybody is different with doing the work, right? For me, I know 18 months ago, I really threw myself into every uncomfortable thing I could possibly think of, because for me, doing the work is doing things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's where the magic is. Yeah. So, I threw myself into doing all kinds of breath work's been a massive part of my journey. Doing breath work has helped me to really regulate my nervous system even more. I set up 18 months ago, I set up a spiritual practice that I've committed to daily. It doesn't matter where we are, on holiday, at home. I stick to this consistent practice.
I love that. Would you share it?
Yeah. So I started off because I'm obviously busy.
Yeah.
And these days everyone's busy, and they say that I don't have time to do that. Well, that's where you're wrong. You need to prioritize you in your day. So every, usually 10 o'clock in the morning, most of my clients even know this, they're so funny. Usually at about 10, I'll sit and I'll have, I started with having a cup of cacao.
Yeah.
I sat with that cacao, whether it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I just sat with it and I drank the cacao with the intentions of how I wanted to feel.
Yeah.
And that's how I started. And that's since changed into, that now looks like going for a run and coming home and having a cold shower, sitting and journaling, having my cacao while I'm journaling, doing my, my guidance cards, and just sitting and being with myself in stillness for some time.
Yeah.
So that's gone from just having a 5-minute cup of cacao to now like an hour in the morning. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And what I find is that you have to do things consistently.
Yes, that's
right?
the habitual thing of change, is that you have to be consistent.
Yeah. And so for me, I feel like doing the work is being consistent.
Yeah.
Be consistent. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Be consistent with that. Make a choice. I'm going to have cacao every single day. That is my choice. That is my spiritual practice. Or I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go for a walk every day. And that's going to be my spiritual practice. I'm going to journal, whatever it is, as long as it's really helping to nourish you and nurture you, you're starting to do the work towards consistency. And the ego, the loud voice in your head, the inner critic is always going to say when you start new things, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't change. We need to stay safe. We need to stay what's familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the body isn't going to get anywhere if you keep staying in the familiar.
Yeah.
So I started off with a cup of cacao. And I moved my spiritual practice out, and I started to branch myself into doing things that were uncomfortable, like breath work, cold showers. Crumbs, man, that is just like something else to another level.
I love cold therapy.
Yeah.
I'm all in it. Like, I'm constantly talking to people about cold therapy. It's the best. But I have an ice bath. I submerge into ice. Yeah, I love it, because the rush of endorphins that you get 20 minutes later, and the feeling and the new fresh blood that flows into the body, oh my God, so good.
And so good for inflammation.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's a real mindset thing.
Yeah.
Even coming here this morning, and I was, getting into the cold shower. And I've been doing cold showers for a little while now. And I was like, that fear of getting into the cold shower this morning. And I was like, just get your ass in that shower.
Yes.
Just step into it and breathe.
Yeah.
So doing the work is starting off with something really small.
Yeah.
And then working towards something else. And it's always really great when you're going through a transition of wanting to change.
Yeah.
Have someone support you.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing about leaning into the uncomfortable, and I want to talk just a little bit about that, is that we'll never actually move forward and make change until we lean into the uncomfortable thing that's holding us back. And so, when we're talking about such a massive thing such as womb and fertility, and this is a huge area of sadness and upset for many, many women, and it's acknowledging those things for themselves and leaning into the uncomfortable, which can be so scary and so heartbreaking and so sad. But if we can lean into it and embrace the fact that this is a really horrible, shitty human experience at times, but we have to lean into it, and we have to resolve the emotions and the energetic stuff that we're holding on to, so that we can move forward in a really healthy way and get the outcome that is meant to be, and not hold ourselves back. Because I think that's the other thing too, is when we don't lean into the uncomfortable, we hold ourselves back every single time, and it's a protective mechanism. It's like you were saying, it's like that, don't lean into the uncomfortable because I don't want to change. No. And the body starts freaking out, but this is a safe place. And I know that this is really sad, and I know that I'm really uncomfortable here, but this is really familiar to me and I don't want to change. But if you do change and you do embrace the whole thing holistically, what might be the outcome from that? Because I can tell you, like from personal experience and from what I see of my own clients, is the moment that they make the choice to lean into the pain and the suffering, that's when all the healing starts. And that's when you actually get the outcome that is intended for you on this life experience. Would you agree with that?
100%. That's why I have a 60% success rate with women falling pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's why I have success with, I do relationship counseling, why couples are staying together, and why women that aren't trying to conceive are really embodying and moving forward in leaps and bounds with whatever they're working on.
Yeah.
It's absolutely that.
Let's talk about some of the distractions that people do.
Oh.
We've all been guilty of that, haven't we? Like,
100%. If I don't want to do something, I procrastinate like there's no tomorrow.
yeah, I hear you.
So, yeah.
Netflix has been getting a fairly decent run in my household over this summer break, I can tell you. Oh, goodness. So let's talk about that. Like, what are some of the things that you see women doing to distract themselves from kind of leaning into this experience?
The number one I find is staying busy.
Yes.
Let's just do absolutely everything and never stop and actually take a breath.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably the number one, is just doing all of the time and never stopping, because that doesn't allow, if we stop, there's a fear then of feeling. And if we feel and it's uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, I've been there. I know exactly what I worked, like you were saying before, you worked in corporate, and I was the same. And it was busy and it was intense, and it kept me distracted from actually feeling anything, because the moment that you're not busy, you're like, oh my God, there's feelings coming in. Oh my God, I feel really crap. Oh, I'm having panic, and I'm having an anxiety attack. I don't want to feel this anymore. Okay, what can I focus on? Oh, I'm going to do this now. And you're right. That's the busyness that is unnecessary. We actually don't need to be as busy as we are, because we're just putting a little Band-Aid on much bigger problem, right?
Oh, absolutely. And when you actually stop, being busy and you stop the coping mechanisms, what you'll find is you're left with the truth.
Yeah.
But if the truth, because we all know what the truth is deep down, we're all intuitive beings, right?
Yeah.
And on some level, you know the truth if something's right or wrong. So when you don't want to face that truth, you will not stop.
Yep.
So that will look like staying busy. It will look like phone scrolling.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a
And
great
comparing.
distractor. How many hours can people waste like scrolling through their phone?
Oh, gosh.
Gosh, I hate having a phone.
Sometimes, I guess it's hard with it's not hard. It's just making it a priority. Like I've got a 25-minute on my Instagram count. Once that hits, I'm like, right, it's off for the day. That's it. We're done. So it's just having those really strong boundaries into going, I'm not going to go onto that.
Yeah.
And kind of capping yourself there. But there's, a lot of people that just keep on scrolling. There is, eating is a massive one.
Oh, yeah.
Emotional
Snacks.
eating.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to point out that weight is a protective shield. So if you're carrying weight, there's emotions there that you're suppressing.
Yeah.
And you're not allowing anyone in. Those walls that we spoke about earlier with the heart, they're so closed and so like protective of whatever it is that's happened in your world and your childhood that's led you to be, I need a wall up, I need to protect myself, I need to be strong, I need to I need to be this person that is just completely in control.
Yeah.
And then that blocks everything for us. So eating is a way of, you can eat when you're bored, you can eat when you're sad, you can eat when you're happy, but ultimately that weight is just a protection barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can get out of control because you're not aware of it, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like any sort of substances as well, like alcohol and drugs and things as well. Like before you know it, you've got a trauma that's happened. So you're like, oh, I'll just have a drink just to take the edge off. And the next thing you know, that's now gone for a week. And you're like, oh, I could have 2 drinks. That's okay. Like it's nothing major. So next thing you know, you're having 2 drinks every night. And then, your sleep is then starting to get affected because your body and your liver is starting to go, hey, this is not good. And you're starting to feel really crap. And so then you eat because you feel really crap because it makes you feel better, right? So you're eating all of the sugars and the sweets and releasing oxytocin. You can see where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, 100%. And sugar, just to link that kind of back to what I was saying about the womb and anger and frustration, is that sugar is connected to anger and frustration. And it's also connected to your liver.
Yes.
So how that works is when the liver's not functioning well or effectively, let's say, when it's not functioning effectively and we're tired and we're exhausted, we start to head for sugar city.
Yeah.
And we start to have the sugar. Now, by having the sugar, we are then evoking the emotion of frustration and anger even more, and you'll find it will come out even more.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it?
So the more sugar that you have, you're actually feeding the frustration and anger, which then comes out usually around the people that you love.
Yeah, so true.
So if you die down the sugar and start to move away from that, you'll not start to, again, you'll start to feel, I don't want to feel anger or frustration. So I'll start eating sugar more, but then it brings it out more.
Yeah.
So there's all these different holistic ways, like all of your organs are connected to a body, connected to an emotion. And so, anger and frustration is connected to the liver.
Yeah. And like exercise as well. Like I see people who over exercise, would you believe? Like you wouldn't think that that's a thing, but it absolutely is a thing because they're not taking in the right calories and nutrition. And so they're over exercising and they're wondering like, why am I not building muscle? Why is this not happening for me? They're like, we're actually over exercising. You can do too much stuff, right? And again,
Absolutely.
That's a coping mechanism of, I've now finished work for the day. I'm going to go hit the gym, and then hitting the gym really hard and then doing it again the next morning. And, there needs to be a healthy balance of things because we can overdo exercise and we can then, damage our body and then have time where we have to heal and we have to recover and repair. And then that can be really frustrating as well because we're not actually then to exercise.
And exercise along with sex, they're both coping mechanisms in that they release endorphins and they make you feel better.
Yes.
So what we're essentially trying to do is balance back our nervous system.
Yeah.
I don't feel really great. So if I go and exercise afterwards, I will feel great. But it's also when we're exercising, we are activating that sympathetic nervous system. We're charging it all up, and when we're running, we're letting out that. We're letting out that charge, so it brings us back to a calm nervous system.
Yeah.
So, whenever, even when it comes to pleasure, when we're having an orgasm, it's the same deal. It's that release, that rush of endorphins that brings you back to that homeostasis, calm nervous system afterwards, and you feel good. But then obviously as the hours in the day move on and all of those suppressed emotions come back, it all comes flooding back. So it all comes down to doing the work on connecting to your heart, connecting to your womb, and being able to heal some of the physical symptoms that are showing up.
And I want to talk about menstrual cycles as well, because this is a big kind of tell sign that something's wrong in the womb. It's a physical, like you can't avoid it. You're having a bleed. It is what it is, but there's a lot of information in that bleed that can tell you a lot about your emotional and mental and energetic health, right?
Oh my gosh, Tracy, this could be a whole podcast for me. This is like my favorite subject to talk about.
Excellent. Let's get in there then.
So whenever any client comes to see me, my main question is always, what does your period look like? How long does it go for? How long are your cycles? And just in that piece of information, I'm already ticking over physically and emotionally and energetically what's going on with that person in front of me.
Yeah.
So things like when we're having like cramping at the start of our period and the period's not coming, but there's cramping.
Yeah.
That cramping, I want you to think about your uterus like a dry sponge.
Yeah.
So can you imagine squeezing a dry sponge?
Yeah.
What that would feel like?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your uterus. When the blood's not flowing and it's not circulating and being consistent, that's your uterus.
Yeah.
So you're basically trying to pull the bleed out in a dry sponge.
Wow, that's so interesting.
So that's an indication that we don't have enough circulation happening in the womb. And that doesn't come down to exercise. That comes down to your womb is a place where 5% of your circulation goes here.
Yeah.
Things like endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts, they block that 5%. So it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And this is how our bleed, if it's not that beautiful cranberry looking red color that's flowing like you've just cut your knee and there's blood pouring out, and it just looks delicious, and it's just flows. When we don't have that flowing blood, there's something going on in here that's blocking that. And so we want to get all of the circulation into the womb area through like self-massage or by having a practitioner, do womb massage and healing on your belly to be able to get the blood flowing.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what we want to do. Yeah. When there's the excess blood, when there's too much blood coming out, when it's a really heavy bleed and you're changing your pad or tampon every 2 to 3, 2 hours or less than that, that's usually an indication to me emotionally that there is a lot going on in your world. There is a lot. There are things that are not processing. You've probably had a really stressful month, and if you look back on your month, I had a client who'd been seeing me for some time, and she started off with periods that were really short and brown blood, black blood clots.
Yeah.
And through working with me after a couple of months, you know, this bleed was that cranberry looking fresh blood.
Yeah.
And then the following month she came in and she sat down. I remember she threw a bag down and she said, "Oh, my period is the worst it's ever been."
Interesting. And so what was going on?
I said to her, "Now let's just look at your month." She'd moved house.
Yeah.
She'd changed jobs.
Yeah.
And her partner had started a new business.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff in 1 month.
So the great thing is that because I'd already given her the tools and educated her on this, she was already aware, so she didn't freak out. When that happened, she was just like, "Oh, this is why."
Yeah.
So whatever's going on in your world is going to be reflected in your period, and that is such a great indication for me as a practitioner to know what's going on with your body.
And I'll share my experience because, yes, you know that I've had a relationship change just recently. So everyone knows Drew and I, and so he's been on the podcast before and I've spoken about him very regularly. But we've separated, and we've separated probably only, 3 months ago now. And so my period this last time, oh my gosh, it was out of control. And I know it's because I'm holding on to so much stuff that needs to be worked on. But it was terrible. It was so heavy. It was clotty. It was huge. And yes, I had moments where I had to, pretty much every hour, I was running to the toilet because I'm like, okay, well, I've got to deal with this situation every hour. And so it manifests and it comes out. And when I look at that and I know what's going on, I'm like, right, there is a lot of emotional stuff here that I need to work on and deal with, right? And I think I want to normalize it through this conversation, and put it out there that there are so many things going on for so many of us as women, whether it's moving house or changing jobs or partners starting business, but there's also lots of big things too, the loss of pregnancies, the gaining of pregnancies, the changes in relationships, the loss of loved ones, all sorts of things can happen. And we do manifest it in our womb and we're just not aware of it until it happens. And we see our periods, I think, a lot of the time as one of those things that holds us back or is inconvenient, or there's this social kind of thing about periods, which, I do a lot of work with menstrual cycle workshops here. And there's this all of this negativity on menstrual cycles, right? On it being such a holdback for women, and it shouldn't be. It is our truth indicator, and it is a guide. It's an opportunity for us to actually see what's going on in our body and start dealing with some of these things that are actually going on for us. How do you feel about that?
Oh, 100% agree with that. And it will usually get louder and louder and louder. And so, I've got women that see me that had excruciating painful periods and had to take, tablets and medications just to be able to get the pain under control. Yep. And now through the journey of working with me, they don't get any pain at all.
Pain is an interesting one though, isn't it? Pain, so that's something that I don't experience. I don't experience cramping or pain or anything like that, but I have seen women who have just been in excruciating pain. And what is your experience on how that comes about with the pain? What's actually happening in the body when people are experiencing pain?
Well, like I said, from a physical point of view, there's the lack of circulation happening in there. Yeah. There could be things like endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts. There could be those types of things going on. So I don't want to just focus all on, it's just emotional, because sometimes there is bigger things at hand as well. Yeah. So there's that going on. But there's, pain. If you think about pain and suffering and the things that us women go through. Yeah. That is reflected in the emotional side of you. So so my grandmother passed away 4 years ago, and I absolutely love her so much. She was like a second mum to me. Yeah. And I noticed that my periods were just completely different when she passed away, because it was the shock and the trauma. And it was the shock and the trauma of her passing away so quickly within 3 weeks that my body went into shock. My nervous system went into shock. And then that was reflected, that the pain that I was experiencing emotionally, because I didn't want to deal with it, Tracy. I did everything I could. I controlled. I looked after everybody else. I didn't focus on myself. I did all the things, which I don't recommend, by the way, if you're listening, because it took me probably until last year to really work through that. So because I held on to it, I held on to that pain in my heart. I didn't just let it openly work my way through it.
Because there's a timing for that too, right? Because obviously when something like that happens, which is such a huge, significant life event, and we lose someone that we love, there is a small period of time where we should give ourselves a bit of grace to essentially hold it together so we can get through all of the logistical and operational side of it, right? But then once that's done, it is our responsibility to kind of be accountable and go, okay, how am I feeling now? Like, what's actually going on? Because now that I've dealt with all of that and that's out of the way, I really need to lean into this and actually feel it for exactly what's going on, because otherwise it just blows out over time and we're having to then deal with it for a longer period of time at a later point anyway. Do you think?
Well, that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't want to deal with the reality of what was happening. So that emotional pain connected to my period, you know, like I started to get cramping and I started to get unusual things happening in my body, and that was because I wasn't dealing with it. So, you know, since dealing with it and being able to move forward with it emotionally, my bleeds are now a reflection of what's happening with me internally. And so that brown dark blood, it's common, but it's not normal. Pain is common, but it's again not normal. And so it's being able to work through I have so much success with women, fertility or non-fertility, because we are working the emotions and we are working the physical at the same time. So I'm intertwining embodiment, womb massage, talk therapy. I'm bringing everything together so that you walk away feeling so light and so clear and grounded. And then the next month you come and see me and we do it all again. And so you can imagine at how you see the change, the physical changes in the body happen super quickly when you start to do this. And that is your indication of, wow, things are changing. I'm changing. Things are working and healing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I want to talk about that. Let's talk about healing.
Healing the womb. Well, like I said, it's, you know, making sure it can become very overwhelming, I feel, when people say do the work and make changes, and you become very overwhelmed and stuck in your head about things. So I'd encourage your listeners, if they're in that space of, oh my gosh, I feel overwhelmed, is just to do one thing every day that helps you to get on track. So like I said, cacao was my thing because it was a nourishing, nurturing drink that I had every single day that made me feel good, and it was filled with iron, potassium, magnesium, all the good things, right? And stuff. Zinc.
So love it. I love cacao. It's the best.
So starting off with one small thing. And, you know, physically we all know that we're supposed to eat well. So eating nourishing foods, make better choices. I say there's a tagline in my family, even my kids' friends are saying it now. It's like, just make good choices. Right? They leave the house and I'm like, have a great time, make good choices, because
I love that.
We always have a choice. We always can go, do I want to have the hot chips or do I want to have the salad sandwich? So just make choices that are going to work better for your body. Because the more you empower yourself to feel good, the better you will feel. Doing things like self-massage, it's going to be fantastic for your body to get that circulation going and helping the womb to, you know, bring in the juicy blood, helping the stagnant old blood to get out of your body and to be able to bring flow back to your womb. So self-massage is really great. Castor oil packs.
I saw that on here. What is that?
Oh, castor oil packs. This is a really old traditional way. Castor oil packs, the way I explain it to people is like, I can't elbow your womb. Like I would, you know, you think about a remedial massage, you can elbow to get into the big spots. You can't do that with womb massage. So the castor oil pack, you place the cloth of castor oil over your abdomen and it sinks in and really sinks into all those places in your womb. Like I was mentioning before, it helps to soften and detox and break down anything that's sitting there, any old blood. And so a castor oil pack is a really great way to be able to detox your womb and your abdomen at the same time and clear anything that's sitting in there physically.
Castor oil is such an old tradition, right?
Old remedy.
That's so cool. Yeah, and it's these things that we forget.
And it absolutely helps with your periods and anything that's kind of sitting here physically in the womb as well, like blood clots and heaviness and
And what about movement as well, like moving stagnant energy, like somatic therapies and stuff like that?
So I'm really big on embodiment and moving your body, and it doesn't need to be exercise or going to the gym, just moving your body in a way that feels really good. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm quite often on there dancing in my kitchen, moving my body, shaking my body. Sometimes I look like a complete fool, but that's the point, is that you're not doing it to look pretty. You're doing it to connect to your body. And the more we can connect to our body, the more we connect to our truth. And if we're connecting to our truth, we are then connecting and opening our heart, which then embodies into our womb.
Yeah, I love that. I've done so much somatic stuff and I practice it all the time at home whenever I'm going through anything. Yes, you probably do look like an idiot. Well, to people who have never done it before, but to someone who's done it and has seen it very often, it's like, wow, it's powerful because you're actually moving the energy. You can feel the energy move. You're getting rid of it. You're basically just throwing it and repelling it out of your system. And that's what we want. We want to get rid of this stuff that's being stagnant in the body, because if we don't release these things now, they always come up later down the track as disease. Like I say this quite often is, you might have that person in your life who you're like, wow, this person got really sick and passed away, but I don't know why. Like they were really healthy eater, they exercised all the time, they did all of the right things, they didn't smoke, they didn't drink. Why did they get sick? Why did this happen to them? And, more times than none, it's because there was trauma and emotional things going on for these people that gets manifested and stagnant in the body. And if you tap into your body, you can always feel where there's something being held right now. Like we could sit here right now and go, even if we're feeling really great, we could tap in and we could feel, right, how is my body feeling, and do a body scan, and you would be able to find something in the body that needs to be shifted and needs to be moved. And that's the thing that we forget, is that we are energetic beings. We're not just physical. We're part of we're part of nature. We have energy, we have a mindset and a consciousness, and we have a physical body. And all three elements have to be tapped into if we're going to live a happy and healthy life. And so these are the things that we often forget. The physical can be optimum. We can be athletes, right? But our mental health might not be so great, or our energetic body might not be so great. And these things always play out later down the track as far as disease.
Absolutely. Everything comes together. If there's one aspect not working in your life, it's going to be showing up in another way. There's something blocking you from doing that. If you've got physical symptoms, stiffness, soreness, you can blame it on the gym. You can blame it on whatever it is that you want to blame it on. But essentially there's an emotion there that's going, please see me.
Yeah, please hear me. I really want to be heard, and I'm going to start poking you and make you. It's always my shoulder. My right shoulder goes. It's like, hello, I'm trying to get your attention here. Yeah.
Well, that's what happened with me with my foot in complex regional pain syndrome. Is it started off with that? You've got to slow down.
Yeah,
you've got to slow down. I didn't listen to it. I will slow down when.
Yeah,
I will slow down when.
Yes.
And it just kept going, and then one day my body just went, F you.
Yeah.
And then that was it. I was done for 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, it's been so good talking to you. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
I just want to say that if you're in a place where I know what it feels like to feel overwhelmed and like nothing is going to get better, and you can feel like there's all these options and you just don't know what to do. So just take 5 minutes every day to do something that really serves you.
Yeah.
And I recommend you do this in the morning. Take one small step towards your goal. Take one small step every single day, and those small steps will end up making such a massive change in your world. Amazing. And I just want to leave your listeners with that one small thing can be every night before you go to bed, place your hand on your heart and one hand on your womb and take a deep breath and just say, how do you feel?
Yes.
And that's it. And start with that practice, just that one simple breath, and then go to sleep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me today. I've been so excited and so looking forward to this chat, and it's such valuable information. So if listeners, and I know that I prompted this earlier, but if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way that they can contact you?
The best way is over on Instagram, which is at Edwina Taylor Wellbeing. I've also got a retreat coming up in May, which is a therapy-based weekend embodiment retreat, which is going to be super fun and exciting, and a whole weekend of healing.
Wow.
All of the things we've mentioned on the podcast
That's
today.
in Perth?
That's in Perth.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's that will be on my website, www.edwinataylor.com.au.
Yep.
So they're the best places for you to reach out and get in touch with me. I'm always open to send me a DM, tell me what you thought of the information today, and thank you so much for having me, Tracy. I've really loved being here. This has been so great.
Awesome. And everyone, don't forget to share this with your family and friends, because this is such valuable information. It's free. Okay, so leave a 5-star review and make sure you're sharing it with someone who might need to know this information. But until next time, thanks, Edwina, for coming on.
Thanks so much, Tracy.
See you later.
Bye.
The information, views and opinions expressed on this podcast should not be used or treated as a substitute for nutritional, medical, psychological or other advice by a qualified medical health professional. Hosts and guests on the podcast express their own opinions, experiences and conclusions, and nothing on the podcast should be used to diagnose, treat, cure or prevent any medical conditions. The podcast is not intended to replace any medical or mental health treatment. All information and advice provided is for general well-being and does not take individual cases into consideration. Neither Tracy Saltis, guests on the podcast, or any sponsors endorse the opinions, views or conclusions expressed or shared on the podcast. Tracy Saltis takes no responsibility for any symptoms or consequences as a direct or indirect result of this podcast.